What starting pitching depth the Atlanta Braves had in 2025 quickly vanished due to injuries. The Atlanta Braves can't afford to have that happen again. They need to get some quality depth. I'm going to tell you the top arms that are available this offseason that they should be targeting. All that on today's episode of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I'm your host, Jake Mastroianni. You can follow me on social media at shortstopball. Check out the podcast there at LockedOn_Braves on X and Locked On Braves on Instagram. If you're new and you're watching this on YouTube, please do me a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button, leave us a comment down below. If you're listening on the audio side, you can help out as well. Just leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks so much for your support here of a Locked On Braves. Thanks for being on every day or here of the podcast. Today's episode, we're going to continue our series we're on right now, looking at the top targets for the top priorities for the Atlanta Braves. Today, we're going to look at starting pitchers. We looked at shortstops earlier in the week, then relief pitchers. Now we're going to take a look at starting pitchers, where there are a ton to choose from this offseason. Wide variety of starting pitchers, but a lot that the Braves could go after, and I think they definitely should. We'll see if they agree with that this offseason. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So when we look at the offseason priorities for the Atlanta Braves, shortstop was number one for me, followed by relief pitcher, and I said they needed two of them, and then followed by starting pitcher. And I've talked about this already a little bit, but I'm going to go over it again, and the type of pitcher that I think the Braves need to go after this offseason. And yes, I would love to get the best arm out there, whatever you think that is, Dylan Cease, Framber Valdez, whoever you think that might be. I would love for the Braves to just go sign that best arm. You always want to try to get the best players. That's how this thing usually works. But I also think most importantly, they need someone who can give them innings and give them quality innings. Because you look at the top of this rotation, Chris Sale, Spencer Schwellenbach, Spencer Strider, those are three guys that can anchor your rotation if healthy going into a postseason. They need guys to help them get through the regular season. And I say this all the time. You have to now know in today's environment with pitcher injuries, you have to know going into a season, you're going to lose at least two starters to injury, and probably more than that throughout the season. But I'm just talking about significant injuries. You almost have to know that you're going to lose at least two pitchers to significant injuries throughout a season, and you have to prepare for that. And I know that's hard to do. And it's hard to convince free agents to come in and sign where there might not be any room. But you have to prepare for that. And if that means optioning down a Hurston Waldrop to begin the season in order to make room, you got to. Because at some point, probably not too far into the season, somebody's going to get hurt. And then you can call Hurston Waldrop right back up. But you have to be prepared for that. You need at least 7 or 8 guys that you feel pretty confident in the rotation. We talked about this a little bit last week on our prospect episode, that there's a lot of starting pitchers that are knocking on the door. Some guys that could be ready very, very soon, but those are unreliable. We don't know. They could come up and be Spencer Schwellenbach. They could come up and be AJ Smith-Shawver the first time we saw him, or that's not totally fair, but neither is it saying Didier Fuentes, a guy that they rushed up. And you just don't really know when you call up these young guys. It takes some time. But I think as a general manager, you have to have the mindset that you're going to lose at least two starters. And it's harder to replace them during the season, especially until you get closer to the trade deadline. But you lose a starter in April, you lose a starter in May, all of a sudden that depth is depleted, and you're counting on the Bryce Selders, the Joey Wentz, the Dane Dunnings, the Eric Fetties, the Carlos Carrascos of the world. And that's just really hard to overcome at a certain point. Now, 2025 was extreme. I mean, losing all 5 of your opening day starters, that is extreme. Like I said, nobody can plan for that. You can plan for maybe losing 2 starters. Planning for losing 5 is just, you can't do it. And that's where you ended up with a season where you got 41 starts from Bryce Elder and Joey Wentz. You got another 7 starts from Eric Fedde and Carlos Carrasco. That's just not what you were hoping for going into the season. And you would rather, if you can, build out that depth. So then when you ultimately do lose one of those pitchers, okay, now you're calling up a seasoned veteran, or you're calling up somebody that has some experience at the big league level and good experience at the big league level. So with that out of the way, in terms of what I'm looking for, what I hope the type of pitcher that I hope they're targeting, here are the top starting pitcher free agents. And I'm only going to go over free agents this episode because there's a lot of them to cover. We'll get into a Tarek Skubal episode later, some other maybe trade possibilities. But today we're just going to focus on the free agents. And I got it in tiers. And in tier 1, I have Dylan Cease, 29 years old. And this past season had a 4.55 ERA, which doesn't seem great. A 1.33 whip, also not great. But a near 30% strikeout rate. The walk rate is too high at 10%. But the xERA was 3.5. His four-seam fastball averages 97 miles per hour. And he's had 5 straight years of making at least 32 starts. But the fewest innings, this was the fewest innings he's had since 2021. So he has been one of the most durable arms in baseball, which is what I want. Like I said, what I think the Braves should be targeting is somebody that's durable, gives you innings and quality innings. But at a certain point, everybody's durable until they're not. And you want to be caught holding the bag when you sign Dylan Cease to a 6-year deal, pay him $25-30 million a year, and then all of a sudden he's not durable anymore. And that's just a risk that you take. But he has proved himself over the past 5 years to be very durable. But he's likely going to get paid a lot for that this offseason. I apologize. I know I'm going to mess up this name. Tatsuya Imai, I-M-A-I, turns 28 in May, likely to be posted from Japan this offseason. A number 3 type starter. I know there's some people that think there might be a little bit more ceiling, but just kind of what I read on him quickly, a number 3 type starter. I know the Braves aren't usually in the international market for Japanese players, but would be a really good arm. Ranger Suarez, left-handed pitcher in here, 30 years old. Last season, started 26 games, had a 3.20 ERA, a 1.22 WHIP. 157 and a third innings was a career high. So keep that in mind. That was a career high for Ranger Suarez. Just a 23.2% strikeout rate, but a 5.8% walk rate. Throws a lot of strikes, gets a lot of weak contact. We've seen him enough. We know how good Ranger Suarez is. Framber Valdez, another left-handed starter, 31 years old, had a 3.66 ERA last year, 1.24 WHIP, 31 games started, 192 innings, a 23.3% strikeout rate, 8.5% walk rate. Both of those numbers are just pretty good. 28 or more starts, though, in 4 straight seasons with 176 and a third or more in those 4 seasons. So like Dylan Cease, somebody that's also been proven to be very, very durable, and that's very attractive. Somebody that's not been so durable here as of late is Shane Bieber. 30 years old. This past season had a 3.57 and a 1.02, but in just 7 starts, 40 and a third innings, a 23.3% strikeout rate, just a 4.4% walk rate. He's also had 4 postseason starts. The first one went 2 2/3, gave up 2 earned, 6 innings, 2 earned, 3 2/3, 2 earned, 5 1/3, 1 earned. So kind of up and down in the postseason. 180 in the third innings in the regular season over the last 3 years. So again, not somebody that's been as durable as some of the other guys on this list. Next, I'll get down to the tiers 2, 3, and 4. There's a lot of names out there. Like I said, we'll continue with the rest of them here next. The NBA season is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of the game, you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. You look at the World Series odds right now, and the Toronto Blue Jays up 3-2 in the series going back home. They are actually the favorites now to win the World Series. However, the Dodgers are the favorite to win the game on Friday night behind Yamamoto. But like I said, NBA is back as well. You can look at the NBA Finals predictions over there, where the Hawks just continue to drop their plus 3,500 at this point, with the Thunder having the highest odds of winning the NBA championship. You can see all that there at FanDuel.com. Also, make sure you visit FanDuel.com/play-safe for tools and resources to help you stay in control of the way you play. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets win your first $5 bet win. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Well, again, thank you as always for making Locked On Braves your first listen of the day. Go check out Locked On MLB for your second listen of the day. They'll be getting you caught up with everything happening around Major League Baseball, the managerial hires, whatever's going on with MLBPA, which we'll talk about later, as well as the World Series action coming to a close this weekend. Make sure you're tuned in right here, though. We'll have our mailbag episode on Friday. Look for a post from LockedOn_Braves on X Friday morning. Submit your question to that post to be answered on Friday afternoon's mailbag episode. Getting back into today's topic, though, we're looking at the top free agent starting pitchers. And moving into tier 2 is Zach Gallen, 30 years old, had a 4.83 ERA and a 1.26 whip this past year. Still made 33 starts, still pitched 192 innings. So gave you that 21.5% strikeout rate, 8.1% walk rate, a 4.39 xERA. So not all that much better than his actual ERA. He got killed by the home runs. 1.45 home run per 9 was the fourth worst among 52 qualified starting pitchers. So that really hurt him this season. Might be willing to take a shorter term deal because he's coming off the bad season. Maybe he takes a 1-2 year deal, maybe a 1 year deal with an option to try to reestablish himself to go on the market again. Next is Lucas Giolito, 31 years old, 2025. He had a 3.41 ERA, a 1.29 whip, 145 innings, just a 19.7% strikeout rate and a 9.1% walk rate. Those are not ideal numbers. First year back from injury, though, it had internal brace that caused him to miss 2024, and then he ended 2025 with an elbow injury. So I'm going to go ahead and say no thanks to Mr. Lucas Giolito. Michael King, somebody that I've really, really liked, and going all the way back to last year when I had several episodes talking about trading for him, and I've always said he's the guy that I would target this offseason, but there is definitely some injury risk there with Michael King. 30 years old this past season, had a 3.44 ERA, a 1.20 whip. Started in just 15 games, only threw 73 and a third innings, had a 24.7% strikeout rate and 8.4% walk rate. That sinker is just so nasty. But can he hold up for a full season as a starter? You know, he kind of went back and forth as a starter early in his career and then fully made that transition, looked really, really good, but hasn't been able to really stay on the field since then. He had a right elbow fracture in 2022. This past season, he dealt with a shoulder nerve impingement that took a long time for him to heal up, and then coming back. And then when he came back, he had some knee inflammation. So a lot going on there. But again, kind of like Zach Gallen, a guy that, you know, has good stuff, has been good in the past, just, you know, 30 years old. Maybe he looks to take a short-term deal to try to reestablish himself and then hit the market again. Brandon Woodruff is the last one in this tier for me. I did not realize how good Brandon Woodruff was last year. Obviously, it's in a small sample size, but at 32 years old, he made 12 starts this past season, a 3.20 ERA at 0.91 whip, a 32.3% strikeout rate, and just a 5.4% walk rate. Those K to walk ratios are pretty incredible for a guy who missed over a year and thrown just 131 and 2/3 innings over the past 3 years. But that's also the downside of Brandon Woodruff. He had a right shoulder injury in 2023, missed this postseason with a right lat strain. He just has not been able to stay healthy. But I was very impressed with what he looked like coming back. Was one of my favorite pitchers for a while back when I used to cover the Brewers. I loved Brandon Woodruff and just has been a really good pitcher. But I don't know that I trust him to stay healthy enough. So those are the first two tiers there. I'd be ecstatic if the Braves get anybody from either of those tiers. Just quickly looking at it, obviously Dylan Cease would be near the top of my list. Ranger Suarez, Framber, Valdez, even Shane Bieber with the injuries. I still wouldn't mind him. I wouldn't mind buying low on Zach Gallen, Michael King. All of those guys. Like I said, pretty much everybody. I don't know much about Tatsuya, but pretty much everybody else. Tatsuya and Lucas will be the only ones that I'm not sure about. Everybody else that I mentioned, those first two tiers, I would absolutely love for the Braves to sign depending on the price. And the only reason I say that about Tatsuya is just I don't know much about him. And Giolito is really the only one on this is a hard no for me. I'm going to pass on that. But everybody else in there, I feel pretty comfortable with to a certain degree with the Braves signing. Tier 3 for me is Chris Bassett, a savvy veteran. He's made a great transition this postseason to the bullpen, so that could perhaps be a spot for him if it becomes a swing man. But I think you sign him to be a starter. Next on this list is Merrill Kelly. I'm going to go through a lot of names here. Like I said, there are a ton that are available, and I think the Braves, I would love obviously for them to get one of them at the top and then one near the bottom would be ideal. I don't know if they're going to do that much, but I'm going to throw a lot of names at you. I'm not going to go too in depth on too many of these. But Chris Bassett, Merrill Kelly, solid innings eater. I love Merrill Kelly. That would be great if they could get him because he's an older guy, probably a one-year deal, but it's a steady middle of the rotation veteran. He just knows how to pitch. So I would love it if they got Merrill Kelly. Max Scherzer, he's still got that dog in him. You see him in the World Series right now doing all that he can. He's not going to come back for peanuts. He comes back. He's a Hall of Famer. He's going to want to get paid, at least $15 million. Braves might be more willing to take that on this offseason than they were last offseason. We talked a lot last offseason. Would they give Morton, Scherzer, or Verlander a 1-year, $15 million deal? They did none of them. And understand, Morton and Verlander in particular didn't necessarily have great seasons. Scherzer didn't pitch a whole lot. So I'm not upset they didn't do those deals. But I think now this offseason, if they are going to spend a little bit more, maybe you take that risk. Justin Verlander, who I just mentioned, kind of the same as Scherzer, it's a Hall of Famer, an active Hall of Famer. He's not going to come back for peanuts. He's going to want to, it'll be a 1 year, $15 million type of deal. The next I'm going to go through are some guys who have options that could be available. Jack Flaherty had the $20 million player option. He also, like Zach Gallen, got crushed by the long ball, which is kind of crazy because Tiger Stadium's not a very hitter-friendly ballpark, but he did strike out nearly 28% of hitters. So I don't know what to really make of Jack Flaherty. I think he'll decline the $20 million player option, but I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of arms out here, so that could push him down a little bit. Coming off a bad year, maybe he just takes the $20 million player option and tries to, get that ERA down, get his numbers back in line, and then try it again. But if he were to come available, I wouldn't hate it, but also wouldn't love it. Shota Managa has a team option. I think the Cubs are going to pick it up. It's 3 years, $57.75 million. He's been really good for them. He did struggle down the stretch, and he is someone else that really has trouble with the long ball. He seems to get worse as the year goes on and the ball start flying a little bit more, but I still think the Cubs will pick up that option. And then Freddie Peralta, the Brewers are a very smart organization. They're going to pick up that $8 million option, so he won't be available. Moving to the next tier is tier 4. Colin Ray. Cubs will likely pick up his $6 million option, but if not, he'd be a solid kind of swing man. What I would love to see the Braves do, I'd love to see them sign one guy that's guaranteed he's going to be a start. Like I would love to see them go sign a Merrill Kelly. He's going to be a mid-rotation, just innings eater, quality starter. And then I would love to see them go get a swing guy like a Colin Ray and Nick Martinez, some others we'll talk about on this list. I would love to see them do that. Jose Urquidy is the next one on here. Tigers signed him knowing he'd be recovering from Tommy John most of 24. They hold a $4 million team option on him for 25 that they'll likely pick up. I don't know that I would have that much interest in him even if they didn't. Adrian Hauser had a bit of a resurgence there for a little bit with the White Sox, but then kind of hit reality towards the end of the season. Swingman, back-end starter, gets a lot of ground balls. Zach Littell, 30 years old, back-to-back seasons of mid-threes ERA and plenty of innings, not overpowering, but can pitch and throws strikes. Just a 4.2% walk rate. That is definitely somebody that I wouldn't mind targeting. Tyler Mahle has dealt with elbow and shoulder injuries the last 4 years. Not really somebody I want to touch because of the injury history, but when he's been on the mound, he's been really good. Nick Martinez, I mentioned a second ago, good swingman, throws strikes, avoids barrels. Wouldn't mind it at all because he's somebody you can plug in your rotation, but he has experience in the bullpen as well. I think that would be a solid fit for the Braves. A couple more international players here. Foster Griffin struggled early on in his major league career. He's gone overseas, playing in Japan the last 3 years. He could be a solid back-end starter, had a 1.62 ERA with a 25% strikeout rate in Japan last year. And then Cody Ponce struggled in MLB and in Japan early in his career, but had a 1.89 ERA and a 36% strikeout rate in Korea last year. Again, don't think either of these guys are going to be frontline starters. Don't look at those numbers they had overseas and think that's what's going to translate to the major league level. But we've seen Eric Fedde, who the Braves had this past year, a guy that went overseas, went to Korea, came back, and had some good moments for the Cardinals. But that's kind of the level that you're looking at there. Wouldn't cost you a lot, but it'd be more like a back-end starter. And then getting really down the list here in Tier 5, Walker Buehler. Do you have one last ride at him? Do you take another chance on that? Griffin Canning was having an amazing year before tearing his Achilles in a game against the Braves. We were all really regretting not picking up that option because he was so fantastic early on. But unfortunately for him, he did tear that Achilles. Not sure he'll be ready for 2025. Don't think it's somebody the Braves are going to take a chance on. Nestor Cortez, another guy looking to reestablish himself and dealing with injuries. Zach Eflin dealt with injuries all season, ended the year injured and had back surgery, but he's been pretty good in the past. So you take a chance on that. Herman Marquez, maybe you get him outside of Colorado and his 95 mile per hour fastball starts to play up. I don't know, but he was pretty awful at home and on the road last year. But again, maybe it's somebody, maybe you could even get on a minor league deal. I don't know, but somebody that would be your secondary pick. Like this none of these guys I'm reading now would not be the guys that would determine, okay, this is who you got for the rotation. These would all be guys that, okay, you already have your main guy, but these are some guys that we're going to get just as insurance. We're going to get them on cheaper deals, see if we can fix them, see if they can, fix themselves and get back on track. And another big one for that is Dustin May. He's been unable to stay healthy. He finally did for the most part in 2025 through the most innings he ever had, but the stuff was down and he got bombed. I wouldn't mind taking a flyer on him again, depending on the price. And I think if it doesn't work out, I fall back as a reliever too. And hopefully that stuff plays back up. You see more of that upper 90s stuff from him. It was down to more 94 as a starter this year. So I think Dustin May would be very interesting. Jordan Montgomery, he might not be back until mid-season. He had Tommy John in March 2025. He signed that deal with the Diamondbacks, was awful, got called out by the GM, and then ended up having Tommy John surgery. So not all that enamored with the idea of him. But again, none of these guys that I'm reading here would be my main guys. These would always be, we got somebody and Jordan Montgomery. We got somebody and Zach Eflin. And then Michael Soroka, bring him in as an option, as a swing man, give him maybe opportunity to start depending on how things shake out to begin the season, but also you can put him in the bullpen, use him out there and bring him back into the rotation if needed. Just never going to give up on Michael Soroka. And then these are all in the same category. They're all kind of the same. They're innings eaters. They're going to give you some, they're going to go out there. They're going to take the ball. They're going to try to pitch. They're not going to overwhelm you. Tyler Anderson, Aaron Savali, Patrick Corbin, Kyle Hendricks, Michael Lorenzen, Miles Michaelis, Chris Paddock, Martin Perez, Jose Quintana, and Tomoyuki Sagano. Those are all guys that, they can give you some good starts every now and then. Not somebody you really want to trust in the postseason, but they can help you get through a 162-game schedule. And they might be better than the Bryce Elders, the Eric Fetties, the Carlos Carrascos of the world. They might be better than those guys. And these might be guys you could even get on minor league deals. So I don't mind taking a chance on some of these. Again, if that is your second pick, you've already got that first pick. You've already got that steady middle of the rotation guy that you're hoping for. And then you grab one of these guys as well. Jose Quintana is a guy that I was screaming for them. Just sign Jose Quintana last offseason. I said it so much, people were making memes about it. And look at the great season that he had for the Brewers and what he did for them, helping them get through that season when their pitching was really struggling early on. So I'm not gonna start that campaign again this offseason. I've made my feelings be known there. And he's coming off a good season. So now we wouldn't really want to because we missed out on that. That ship has sailed. But again, just making the point that signing one of these guys just to taking a flyer on them is fine, but you can't do what you did last offseason and only take flyers. It's got to be something substantial and a flyer. And I'm hoping that's what we see the Braves do with starting pitching this offseason. All right, next we'll get into some of the news and the postseason updates. We'll get into the rest of that here next. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, NBA's here, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. It's simple. All you got to do, Hawks are playing today. Go see what Jalen Johnson has for points plus rebounds or just points. You can see that, and you pick more or less on that total. With Trae Young out right now, it might be an increased workage there for Jalen Johnson, some of the other Hawks players there, Dyson Daniels, others. or you go out there for the World Series on Friday. They'll probably have a number for Shohei Ohtani hits, home runs, Vladimir Guerrero, all of that. You can see it right there in the Prize Picks app. Just pick more or less. Also, if you have issues controlling the way that you game, visit prizepicks.com/help-center/responsible-gaming for tips on how to practice responsible gaming. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me on today's episode of Locked On Braves. I know you're all getting ready for Halloween. You're watching on YouTube. I hope you've enjoyed the graphics on the screen. In today's episode, I'll be safe as you're out Friday night. Obviously, we'll have another episode tomorrow on Halloween day, but hope you all enjoy that with your families if you can. Some Braves news. Ronald was named Comeback Player of the Year by the players, and Drake was named Rookie of the Year by the players as well. So great to see them earning those awards. Very nice to see that. Some news from around Major League Baseball. I mentioned the postseason. The Blue Jays up 3-2 going back to Toronto at the two chances to close it out. And obviously, we hope they get it done. They very much impressed me. Whether they get it done or not, they have really impressed me in this series. We're going to talk a lot about that offense and how I think the Braves need to try to mimic that style a little bit. But if they can't close it out and, the tension gets too tight, whatever the case, you're facing the mighty Dodgers and you just crumble at the goal line there, they're really going to go back to that game 3 and see how, one, you had the bad call that cost them a run, but also you had so many innings and extras to get it done and you couldn't. And again, hopefully they close it out and we don't have to worry about it, but I'm already sitting here thinking if they don't, then that game 3 is going to haunt Blue Jays fans for a while. You had 2 more managerial jobs get plugged up. The Twins hired Derek Shelton and the Nats hired Blake Butera. Only 2 of the 6 managers who have been hired so far have managing experience, which is very interesting, and the trend we're seeing in baseball. And there's just 3 jobs left. It's the Braves, it's the Padres, and it's the Rockies. Obviously, I think the Braves have been the most, I think they've been the best job out there since things began. But obviously now I think the Braves, Padres are 2 very, I don't know why I can't think of the right word to say. They're attractive is the word that I'm trying to get there. I think those are both very attractive spots for any manager. But I definitely think the Braves have been the top one from the beginning. We'll see what happens. Maybe they are waiting on Danny Lehman, waiting for the World Series to end. We certainly will see. It feels like that the longer that this goes on, but there are still 3 managerial vacancies out there. You look at some crazy stuff going on. I'm not going to get into this too much detail because, one, I haven't read up on it too much myself, but some crazy stuff going on with the MLB Players Association. A company they own is under federal investigation right now. They also had to ban an agent for double dealing with the MLB. Not a great time for this stuff to be coming out with the CBA negotiations happening next offseason. So doesn't look good right now for the MLBPA or MLB either. But just wanted to at least mention that. Like I said, I'm not going to go. That's not this podcast to go into deep detail on that, but I did want to at least bring it to your attention. All right, that would do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thanks so much for joining me here live. Video Moon says the momentum is more on the Blue Jays side. I mean, Dodgers look tired. The Blue Jays have been very, very impressive the way that they have played in this series. Joe Me says, bad time to be shady and greedy. Yes, I definitely agree. Hayden, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a minute. Thanks for being here. Jeffrey Humphreys as well. And every day, I appreciate you joining me today. Got a lot of our regulars in here. Matt Karcher as well. I appreciate your support here on the podcast. Soul Still Burns as well. Docs Cards. Appreciate you joining me here today. Again, we'll be back on Friday afternoon with our weekly mailbag episodes. So get your questions ready for that episode. I'll answer all of them on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Braves. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think of these graphics you're watching here on YouTube. Hopefully you've had a little bit of fun with them. Make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast, and we will talk to you next time.